What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the KindaFunny Xcast, your home for all things Xbox. I'm one of your hosts, Mike, and I'm back with my two favorite dudes here on planet Earth, my guy Parris Lilly and Gary Whitta, for another week of Xbox talk. Let's start off with you, Parris, because we didn't see you last week. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, and apparently you do spend $70 billion to keep things the same.
You know what? We're going to talk about that because I have that quote literally written down for you. Is right. You know that, Parris.
Oh my God. My social feed has been on fire all week with that. Oh, I thought you didn't spend $1 billion to do
that. All right. Well, you know what? The social media Twitter feed got to it before I did because I wrote that down as our fun little topic. But We'll talk about that a little bit later. Some interesting exclusivity and maybe multi-platform talk we'll have with Activision Blizzard. But let's go on over to number two. My guy, the rogue one, Mr. Gary Whitta, Mr. Loodle, almost hitting 3 million players. Is that correct, Gary?
Almost. We passed it this morning.
Wow. Congrats, Gary. That's awesome, my friend.
I don't know the exact number in front of me, but 3 million and change, and 400,000 playing every day. So it's crazy. Yeah.
Talk about some high player numbers there, Parris. You get what I'm talking about for the next conversation piece we have. Some daily concurrent players for Gary up on the rise. Gary, I also saw you tweet out, Futurama is possibly coming back, and I saw you talking about that on the timeline. Did you write an episode of Futurama? What the heck is that, Gary?
No, only on spec. It's funny. For some reason, I've been kind of thinking about like old projects and things that, never came to fruition. Like 95% of everything that I do and everything that every screenwriter does, never sees the light of day. For like everything of mine that you see, there's 50 things that, almost as much work went into, but, never made it across the finish line for one reason or another. And in terms of Futurama, that's been back in the conversation really because he said Hulu picked up the rights and they're going to reboot it, I guess, or, bring it back in some form. And it just got me thinking. I was already thinking about like old projects this week for some reason. I've been kind of in a nostalgic frame of mind. And it reminded me that way, way back at the very, very beginning of my screenwriting career, when I was still trying to break in, I did write an episode on spec of Futurama in the hopes of kind of getting in the door there. And I did get to sit in on a Futurama table read and meet the cast members and do all that kind of stuff. The episode never got made, but I went back and found it. It was almost 20 years old, this episode, but it was fun to kind of revisit some writing from the very early stages of my career.
Gary, I love when you get nostalgic and you share some of those moments with us. You've done that a couple of times.
Well, I got a lot of it.
Since you and I have been connected.
I don't know if you've heard, Mike, but I'm pretty old, and that one of the good sides of that is there's a lot of nostalgia, just a lot of acreage of memories.
You're the best.
Can I say one thing since you brought up Futurama? If they don't figure this out with John DiMaggio, just can the whole thing.
What's the point?
Exactly. If you can't have the voice, I mean, he is Futurama. I mean, he does so many voices, even besides Bender on that show. If you can't get the original cast, it had a perfect ending. Don't do this. I hope they don't do it. I hope this is just a contract negotiation thing. They'll figure it out and he's on board. I would love to see it come back because I'm a huge fan, but you can't do it out.
They were able to convince the execs to bring back the original voices for the Animaniacs. When they brought back the Animaniacs, they originally wanted that to be like Hollywood stars to come back and to come in and like do new voices for those characters, and that's insane to me. And so they got to figure it out.
It's money. It's got to be money.
But I'm also in the camp that I really loved the last time that they ended the show, and I felt like that was a fitting way to end that story with those characters. So I'm in the camp of like I don't think we need more, but I'll take some more. But we'll see.
Of course, shout out to our producer Barrett on the ones and twos. Welcome in, Barrett Courtney. It's great to hear your voice for another week and have some fun talking some Xbox. But guys, I wanted to kick off this week's show before we get into housekeeping and before we get into the news. Really quick, just going around. It's a nice catch up. What kind of games you've been playing? What have you been up to? Because I want to talk Crossfire X, but I want to kick it over to you guys first before we jump in to that conversation. So Parris Lilly, you're back again. I started with you. I'm going to end with you again. What's been up in your life? What games have you been playing?
I've been playing Redacted. That's what I've been playing.
Redacted is good. Redacted.
Well, actually, I can say it. I've been playing Horizon Forbidden West, and obviously we can't say anything until the embargo's up. But that's been consuming me the last couple of weeks. That's the only thing I've been playing.
That's a perfect tie-in. Of course, we can encourage all of our viewers out there, no matter what console you like to play on, you love good games, you can check out the review for Horizon Forbidden West with the team here at KindaFunny, the KindaFunny Gamescast will be recorded and ready to go on embargo. So you can go check out the thoughts from the team on their playthrough of this awesome game. Gary Whitta, have you been playing any games lately then?
Also redacted.
Okay,
And
nice.
I'll just leave it at that. I always worry about these embargoes and NDAs. Like, you don't want to accidentally like step over the line, even, inadvertently. So I'll just leave it at redacted. I can tell you what's on deck for this weekend. Ollie Ollie World. I'm going to finally get to that.
Yeah.
Very excited about Ollie Ollie World. And there's a game on Nintendo Switch, which I'm going to get the name of it wrong. I think it's like Derailed. But it's apparently very fun. It's kind of like an Overcooked moving out kind of co-op game, but you're trying to build a railroad track like cooperatively in real time. And I'm told it's a lot of fun, so I'm going to investigate that.
Is it called Unrailed?
Unrailed, yes.
Yeah,
there you
go.
Cool.
I got a little gameplay here for you.
Oh, you got a little preview. Oh, like not messing around
nice right here for all the listeners out there. I'm sorry you don't get to see the trailer that Barrett has brought up, but it is very cool looking. Definitely worth the check out there.
So you can see how like the 4 players are kind of cooperating to kind of build the track so the train can kind of stay on it. It's definitely, from what I've told by my friends who've been playing it this week, it's got that Overcooked, kind of energy to it, but it's not quite as like screaming at each other as that. So it looks like a lot of fun. I want to check it out.
Cool. All right. Well, these two have been playing Redacted. They have some games on the docket. I actually jumped in to the big release of the week. That's Crossfire X finally has released over here for the month of February. And of course, this was one of the big games that they promoted as a partnered game, right? Of course, partnering up with Smilegate Entertainment. And it's interesting because you have the multiplayer side that's by Smilegate, right? But then on the opposite side, they brought in Remedy to create 2 campaigns for this first-person shooter. So let's focus on the multiplayer side for a second really quick. Couple months back, maybe a year ago, we got exposed to Crossfire X. We got to jump in a little bit on a open beta, we'll call it. And I remember walking out going, ooh, that was not fun at all. This was really bad to play. And I wonder how they can turn this around. And also, what is Remedy going to do with what we just saw from this gameplay? Unfortunately, I am not happy to announce that the multiplayer is still really bad. It is clunky. It's non-responsive. It feels and plays poorly. And the issue as well is it's dealing with a lot of bugs, whether you're aiming down sights and it's pulling you back, the slide just isn't quite right. And really the game modes itself, it's a mix of Counter-Strike meets Call of Duty in probably a poorly executed way here for the American audience that's just being exposed to it. I know it's big out in Korea and the Asia markets. It's actually created in South Korea. So it seems to be big, but from my experience, the multiplayer, probably worth an hour of your time to laugh and giggle with your friends and say, what are we playing? But past that, it was hard to play this multiplayer. But I do want to shed some positive light on this, and that is the campaign developed by Remedy. Over on the opposite side, you get 2 campaigns. One is included in your Game Pass subscription, so that's awesome. You get to check that out. And then the second one is actually part of the Ultimate Bundle if you buy the game. And there is one little caveat to the positive I'm about to put out on this, is the Game Pass launcher, when it was announced on Wednesday, just didn't have the campaign open and ready to go. Actually, 24 hours later, it still didn't have the campaign open and ready to go. A lot of players were trying to figure out what was going on, what was the issue. I believe they have fixed that now as we record this live on Friday. But you have 2 campaigns, Operation Catalyst and Operation Spectre, and they actually roll into one another. So you'll start off with Catalyst, into Spectre, and I'm going to say it. It's a fun time. It is a good to fine first-person shooter campaign created by Remedy. Remedy's, I believe, first-person shooter campaign they've ever done, and it is a good time. It has a lot of the Remedy vibe and touches that you like. There's a cool narration part to it. There's some really freaky slow-mo and mind-tripping moments that are going to make you question what's going on, and then on top of that, they do a great job within this 4-person squad jumping from character to character to give you different points of views and different gameplay angles throughout these missions. And I'm happy to say the campaign's only 3 hours. So it is just a fun popcorn experience for one night. Get in, get out, and you can move on to the second one. But I was actually really impressed. It runs on a different engine than the multiplayer. So it actually feels good. It runs smooth. It plays well. The visuals are good. And the facial animations are pretty better, decent to very good, I would call it. Better than good. And I was actually impressed with the campaign. I really, really liked it. I thought it had a fun and weird first-person shooter story. I think we talk about first-person shooters as just these big blockbuster, over-the-top action films, and that's essentially what this is in just a tight 3-hour segment. So I am really pleased with that. I'm going to give it a good to fine grade over here on the grading scale. And we'll talk about our new reviews. But guys, have you two tried it, or do you have any questions about Crossfire X at all?
I have not. Go ahead, Gary.
No, Parris, you go.
No, I was just going to say I have not played it at all. I've just seen, kind of the response from the community about the multiplayer. So you kind of confirmed that. The campaign so far, from everything I've seen, other people saying it's pretty mixed. Some people seem to really like it. Some people don't. You seem to kind of lean towards more liking it. I guess I'm a little confused on what you're saying about there's a campaign in Game Pass, but then there's a campaign if you get the bundle. That's just the one campaign you're saying. So right?
There's two. It's two campaigns. So there's Operation Catalyst and then Operation Spectre that are two separate campaigns, but they flow into one another with the story because Remedy did both of them. But they're only giving you one out of the two in Game Pass. So you will have to buy the second one to continue on with the story of what Remedy has created there.
Gotcha.
And that's $24. So it is a little bit high. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's $24 you got to get with the Ultimate Edition. But, I liked the first one to the point where I'm going to jump into the second one. But I did pay the $24 because day one, I wanted to see what was going on so we could talk about it on Game Pass or on Xcast. So I was already in.
Gotcha.
Mike, you did not mince your words when you talked about this game on Twitter earlier this week. You said the multiplayer was trash, capital letters trash.
Trash.
And now that you're talking about these bugs, I can certainly understand why. And it's got me scratching my head a little bit. Like, why ship a buggy game at this moment, right? Like, first of all, we know there's so little tolerance for that right now. We're so sick of buggy games. And that's why we're so understanding when we hear about games being delayed. We'd rather they take the time to get it right. And I still don't think it's excusable, but I kind of understand it, at least like games for the big holiday, shopping, gift giving window, why some of those games end up getting rushed out, maybe with a few bugs. I can understand at least the pressure that the company's under to get that game out, maximize sales. But it's February. And it's not only February, it's a meat grinder February. There's so many other great games coming out this month. Why who made the decision to say, you know what, this game's not ready, but let's release it into a meat grinder release month anyway? Like, why not just wait a couple of months? They must have known the bugs were there if they're that glaring and obvious to you, Mike, as you're playing it. Like, QA would have picked that up. Why not spend the time fixing it? On the positive side, the campaign sounds good. That was the one part where you were always optimistic about, right, based on Remedy's involvement. And I personally like the 3-hour thing. My time's valuable. The idea of, being able to bash out a complete campaign in a night, maybe two, that appeals to me. So I'm going to try the campaign. But the multiplayer sounds, it's not like there aren't other options out there right now if you want to do multiplayer shooters. There's so many options. So the multiplayer side of it has got me scratching my head, but I'll try the campaign.
Yeah, give it a try, Gary. See what you think. Like I said, 3 hours. It's got the Remedy touch and the vibe to it that I think you're going to like. And being on a different engine, you can clearly tell that the game runs and plays better. That's
puzzling. That's puzzling as well, right? Why do that? I mean, I'm not a game developer. It seems like a really inefficient way to do it. Two separate engines.
I think that says a lot, though, about the struggles that you're seeing with the multiplayer. The fact that Remedy was like, we'll just use a completely different engine to do the campaign. So it's unfortunate because I know early on there was a lot of anticipation and excitement for Crossfire X. And then obviously, there was the beta stuff that didn't land well, which was kind of an early warning sign about this multiplayer. And then it comes in hot and it's just not ready for prime time. So yeah, everything I've seen about everyone say is pretty much lean negative towards this. Almost like hey, if it's on Game Pass, you want to try it, go for it. But beyond that, not necessarily worth the buy.
Yeah, that's exactly where it should be at right there. It was interesting that we talked so much about it in previous years, and then now here we are, really minimal marketing, no publicity towards this at all. And we kind of put that under the roof. And even reviews you saw from multiple different outlets saying, hey, we didn't get review codes. We're going to review it day one. That might be a red flag for you. So
yeah, I mean, it really, like I said, especially releasing it in the month that they did with like Elden Ring and there's so many other big games coming out in this window and so much competition already in the shooter space. It almost kind of feels like they sent this one out to die.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what it looks like. Like you said, there was so little marketing around it. Like I didn't even realize it was out until I saw people start talking about it. And then, like you said, to just throw it into this murderer's row of games that are coming out over the next few weeks, yeah, they did send it out to die. Absolutely.
Well, let's jump into the show and let's have some fun. Of course, this is the Kind of Funny Xcast. We post each and every Saturday at 6 a.m. West Coast, Best Coast time on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and on podcast services around the globe. Don't forget that we are now Epic Games partners, which means if you are rocking Fortnite, getting some V-Bucks, or if you're jumping into Rocket League, or if you're buying games off the Epic Games Store, please use our Epic Creator Code at checkout. It's no additional cost to you, and you can help support the team in a brand new way. That Epic Creator Code is kind of funny. Of course, we'd like to thank our Patreon producers who support us over on Patreon for the month of February. Gordon McGuire, James Davis at James Davis Makes, Pranksky, Tyler Ross, Delaney Twinning, First Responder ND, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, James Hastings, and Casey Andrews. Now, we'd like to thank our sponsor for the week of the Kind of Funny Xcast, ExpressVPN and Chime, but myself and the team will tell you all about that a little later. Guys, let's jump into the news, and I wanted to kick off the news with a fun one. All right, let's take it back to the Xbox One days, okay? I want you to imagine.
What's fun about that?
Final Fantasy jabroni. He's got Beats by Dre headphones on, and he's just called down a giant dragon. Yes, it's Scalebound, Gary Whitta. And the question is do you want Scalebound to return? Right now, IGN's got a really fun article up from IGN.com by Daniel Robson and Joe Screbbles. It reads like this. Platinum Games wants to return to Scalebound, the dragon-filled Xbox exclusive it canceled in 2017, and has appealed to Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer to begin those discussions. Speaking to IGN Japan Platinum president Tashi Inaba, I'm going to mispronounce these names, explained that Scalebound creator Hideki Kamiya, quote, has been talking about wanting to work on Scalebound again for a while, end quote. Kamiya himself added, quote, I'd like to appeal to Phil Spencer directly. Let's do it, Phil, end quote. Parris and Gary, I'll ask you both first. I'll go to you, Gary Whitta. Are you interested in Scalebound whatsoever? And would you like to see Scalebound return?
I mean, in the 60 seconds since I've ever heard of Scalebound, yeah, it sounds pretty cool. But it's the funny, this is weird. It's like a weird blind spot. I've never heard of this game. Was this like a well-known game or something? Because this game completely missed me. I had no idea what. I mean, I'm seeing a dude with some Beats by Dre, and he's got a dragon. It looks cool, but I completely missed this game on its first go around. I don't know how I missed it.
Well, Parris, you took to Twitter to talk about this. You had a gaming hot take. So let's go to you because I know you know what this is. This was like a weird, like, fans got up in an uproar about Scalebound. Like, what do you think about Scalebound?
Well, see, I remember, okay, and I admit I was a little harsh on Twitter, but I stand by what I said. I said on Twitter that I've never had interest in Scalebound and don't bring it back. I don't see the reason to even to reinvest in this, to go back to it. Because I remember, being at the Xbox showcase at whatever E3 that was, sitting in the crowd, and when they showed it initially, it just never grabbed me. I get the dragons, Falcor, never-ending story. People get excited about stuff like that. But I saw this game and it never truly appealed to me. And when it got canceled, I just kind of was like, okay, kind of makes sense to me because it didn't appeal to me. So to now come back in 2022 and say, hey, let's start this thing all over again and reinvest into it. Kind of almost feel like, better use of resources, maybe a different IP, maybe a different concept, unless they're just going to completely tear this down and rebuild it from the ground up. But at the same time, just like Gary is saying, the name Scalebound doesn't generate excitement, in my personal opinion. Now, look, people roasted me online because I said what I said. I get it, but I don't think there's enough of a want from the community for a Scalebound game. I just don't. I don't think that name appeals to anyone because we never got a game. So why now, what 6-7 years later, should I all of a sudden get excited about it?
That's interesting.
I was gonna say you see that all the time, don't you? With like films and televisions and video games, like something that was popular and maybe it got canceled before its time or whatever, or a video game series that for whatever reason wasn't super commercially successful at the time, but there remains like a lot of fan sentimentality, like goodwill, nostalgia. People are, oh, wouldn't it be, it's the same games that come up all the time, right? Oh, wouldn't it be great if this came back or that came back? We talk about these games all the time. But sometimes games just, this feels more like one of those games where like it had its day in court. The audience decided that it wasn't for them, and they said next. And see, like don't try to force bringing something back for the sake of it. There's got to be a desire when you're resurrecting something. It's got to be because there's both a clear creative and commercial argument to be made for it. And I don't know if there is one in this case.
Yeah, I don't think so. That would be like me, clamoring for True Fantasy Online. That was an original Xbox game. It was going to be a MMO RPG. And that got canceled, right? You start screaming that in 2022, we were looking like, what? Who wants that? Do something different. There's so many other ideas out there you can invest into versus trying to resurrect something that already failed once, right?
Very well said right there. I guess a follow-up, just to keep the conversation going a little bit more. We always talk about Xbox in the East, right? Getting a foothold in the East, working with certain developers. You look at Platinum Games, who now wants to work with you. Does that have a conversation maybe in the boardroom with Phil and the Game Pass team and so forth of, hey, this could be a good partnership to establish that over there on that side? Or like you said about Scalebound, does that just kind of null and void it all?
I think you have the conversation. Absolutely. I mean, you do your due diligence to see if it makes sense at all for, from a business perspective. But I think ultimately it's going to land on, we tried to do this, back 6-7 years ago. Obviously, for whatever reasons happened internally, it didn't work. They shelved it. Why are we investing into that now? Now, I'm sure they would want to work with Platinum Games, but probably on a different IP, something that could appeal to today's audience more so than what Scalebound did.
Yeah, that's a good one right there, Parris. I totally agree. You look at the name Platinum Games, you think back on this, and, a lot of people have compared it to, kind of that live service Game Pass fodder is what we call it, right? That multiplayer game where you and your friends could jump in, because as Scalebound progressed, we saw you can play up to 4 players, right? All 4 of you are controlling dragons. You're hacking and slashing large monsters similar to a Monster Hunter type feel, and others beyond that. And so does it fit the Game Pass? Hey, let's partner up with this, put it in Game Pass, and will it just come and go? Or are we past that and we're looking for bigger and better partnerships that might be more sustainable than that? But a fun one that jumped into the news this week, I thought we'd all smile and reminisce about Scalebound, the good and the bad.
So this makes me think of like a conversation starter. I'll throw this one out to both of you. What is a game like that where like no one else would say, like there's no real argument for it to come back, like no one else wants it but you want it? What would that game be for you? Is like if they could do it just because it's something that you personally remember, even though like when you go, oh, this game, and everyone else goes, nah, nobody else wants that, but you don't care, like it's something you want. Like what is that thing? What is that orphan child that you would advocate for, that game that you would want to bring back?
Well, I just said it before, True Fantasy Online for me, because I remember seeing that. I guess that was like OXM or whatever there was back 20 years ago, however long it's been. And I was like, wow, because you could be a witch and you could fly around on the broom. And again, it was an online RPG. It was completely ahead of its time. I think level 5, I'm probably screwing up the name of the developer, but yeah, it just looked fantastic. So I've always wanted that game, and I'm never going to get it, unfortunately. But that would be one, like, for me. If I was Phil Spencer, I'd be like, you're making it, do it. I don't care what anyone says.
Wouldn't it be great to be? Remember, I don't know if you heard that story about Howard Hughes, like when he would, like at the height of his fame and wealth, that he had a favorite ice cream or a favorite ice cream flavor, and they stopped making it. So he bought the company and just told him to start making it again, just so that he could have his favorite ice cream. It's so great to be in there. Like, yeah, just remake this guy. I don't give a care if anyone sells it. I just want to play it.
Just wanted this, right? Parris shoots me down every time I say it, but Conker's Bad Fur Day is my dream game to return.
Yeah, I think there is an argument for that.
Yeah, I do feel like there are people more than just yourself, Mike, who would be down for that.
There's a better argument for that than Scalebound.
Parris always checks me and it makes me reevaluate it and think about it. And I think he's right in the long term, even though I want it bad. I think and know in my heart of heart, he's right about that. It's not the right one, is right. But those are my games for sure. I like that Parris says that. Gary, one for you at all?
I think for me it's Crimson Skies, but again, to me that isn't. I say it all the time, but I don't think even that one's that much of an outlier. Like for me, the number one, absolute top one is NBA Street. Bring NBA Street Volume 2 remake, remaster, or just give us a Volume 4. Like bring that back in some way. But again, I think there are arguments that could be made to bring all those games back, commercial and creative arguments. In terms of the one that's like, no one's ever going to want this back but you. I don't know. Actually, even though I posed the question, I need to think about it a bit more because the ones that I have, I think Crimson Skies would be brilliant in the current generation. I think there's some good opportunities for Microsoft to go back and look at some of those older titles. But let me think between now and the end of the show if I can think the one that's like a complete money loser, but like I would want it anyway. I'm trying to think what that would be.
I got one more before we move on for the Xbox fans out there. Brute Force. I would like to play with up to 3 friends with a nice little first-person shooter romp. Brute Force to bring that one back, and I'm pretty sure I think we've all moved on from Brute Force, but I in my heart,
what
of hearts,
even was Brute Force? I remember the name rings a bell, but it was the first Xbox generation, right? Brute Force.
Yeah, it was like the original Xbox.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What was it? What even was it? I don't remember it.
First-person shooter, mixed match team of just renegades and different alien species coming together.
Okay. Barrett is on the money right now.
He's ready to rock always. So yeah, Brute Force I think is near and dear to Xbox fans' hearts out there as you take a look. Third person, my apologies.
I have one more before we go. Mm-hmm. Cameo.
Oh,
Cameo with a K.
Cameo. I would absolutely love Cameo to come back.
That was an Xbox 360 launch title.
360 launch game. Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's keep the show going. Let's have some fun. This one came up in the news and has had the conversation going online. And it's, what's up with the current state of Halo Infinite and where are all the players? Question mark right now. Brought up by Paul Tassi from Forbes. He wrote a little article about the decline of player base for Halo Infinite. So at the start of the week, he said, noting this week Halo Infinite slipped out of the Xbox top 5 to number 6. I know. Hold your pitchforks for a second. And has fallen to number 117 most played games on Steam's. He did note that it does change throughout the day at current peak times, but was at top 40 during peak times when he looked. The quote that he had, but, quote, fact is the game lost about 90% of its players on Steam in 2 to 3 months, end quote. Went over to Windows Central where they had a breakdown of the numbers. They say at launch, it peaked at 200,000 concurrent player count and now hovers at about 10 to 20K players. So, here's the conversation, guys. We are, you can call it 2 months, but really it has been 3 months almost since we're recording when it released on November 15th. What is going on with Halo? Is this something we all need to be taking a look at with 343 and saying, where's the player base? Have they all left? Or is this what a live service games as a service game is expected to do with the ebbs and the flows of player counts?
I think it's both, honestly. The ebbs and the flows are going to happen no matter what the game is. I don't care how good it is, right? But I do think we need to take a look at this. And I don't think ring the alarms like, oh my God, this is a huge thing. But I do think, like, if you go back to when we reviewed the game, I even kind of talked about this then, that it didn't launch 100% complete. We all know that. Kind of thought coming into it that wouldn't be a big deal, but as I was playing through the campaign, I kind of realized that it was missing features. We obviously saw the multiplayer, issues with the battle pass, issues with having the progression, the battle pass not being as rewarding as people were expecting, not having enough game modes in multiplayer, lack of map diversity, things like that. It's starting to catch up to it now. And having this extended long season 1 doesn't help, because I think we're kind of getting into that point where we're just doing the same loop over and over. And why are we doing it when I could go be playing something else that might be more, deserving of my time right now? It's not that Halo Infinite is a bad game, campaign or multiplayer. It's just, it needs more things to do. Yeah, I think that's the simplest way to say it, right? And they know that. If you follow what 343 has been saying online, just with everything with the updates, they're aware, but clearly it's going to take time for that stuff to happen. I think Joe Staten even came out, was it this week or the week before? He even said something online about this, like, they're aware, they're working on it, but it's going to take time to get more of these features implemented into the game. Like I've done 2 complete runs on campaign, since, during the review period. And then I wanted to get the achievement. So I went back and did it again. But I want to do it on legendary, but I'm like, I'll just wait till co-op.
Yep.
So that means I'm waiting until May because co-op's not available, or I would probably still be playing campaign right now. I would love to jump in and do more multiplayer, but I don't feel like for me personally, it's rewarding enough. So I'm not going to invest my time in that right now. I'll go do other stuff. And then when I feel it's rewarding enough, I'll come back, because it's not a thing of I don't want to play it. It's just, I know it's going to improve. So either I'm just patient and wait until it improves, or I'm not patient, play something else, and I never come back. And I think that's where the community is, where 343 needs to continue communicating about what they're doing and keep people updated. Because while I don't think the current state of, population health is terrible, we obviously saw what it was at its peak. So you know what its potential could be. So you have that many people that would invest in the Halo. You probably got a lot of people that are thinking like me of, I want co-op. I want more rewards. I want the battle pass to feel more satisfying to me. Things like that, right? And they're just not there yet. So either be patient or not. I mean, it really comes down to that. But they got work to do, and it's unfortunate that it's probably going to take until the summer before we really start seeing this stuff pay off.
That is a wild thought, right, Parris? We talked about that first 3 months of kind of the honeymoon phase into, okay, now we're enjoying this, but like what's next? And now looking and going, oh, it's probably going to be another 3 months from now. That's a long period to wait, especially because they extended that season 1. We saw a lot. I went to Twitter and asked the, best friends out there that follow me on Twitter, hey, you still playing? Yes or no? And I know that's a little limited on the options there, but a lot of people said, I've already filled out the battle pass. I'm looking for those rewards. I have nothing to chase now and go after. And so it is interesting with a 6-month battle pass, essentially where we're at right now. We're going to be here for quite some time working on rewards you probably already have unlocked. Gary, I want to turn to you. I know you're not the biggest multiplayer guy, but you have been around live service games. You've seen big MMOs live and die off of player counts. Is this something alarming to you when you hear those numbers from Paul Tassi and the team?
I think it's one of the more interesting questions in the Xbox community right now, because Halo's the flagship, right? It's the big one. And Halo Infinite is the biggest, most ambitious, perhaps most important Halo game that Microsoft's ever done. And, it's first of all, say I'm not necessarily a big multiplayer guy. I wasn't in terms of Halo, but don't forget, Halo Infinite really got its claws into me over the from launch for the first couple of months. I was playing it every minute of the day. At lunch hour, I would get up early in the morning to play. That feeling like even when you're not playing it, you're thinking about it. Like the game really, really was living rent-free in my head for a good couple of months there. And the fact that I drifted away from it, I don't necessarily see that as an indictment on the game. I was really enjoying it, but then, I got to help take care of a newborn. Plus, generally, I tend to burn out. I get really, really intensely into a game for like a few weeks, and then I burn out and move on to the next thing. So that's just really more me than the game. But looking at these numbers and following the stories as I do, it seems like every day there's like, oh, Kotaku's got a story about, they fixed, big team battles fixed now. But then Polygon's got a story about, but now the fans are unhappy about something else. Right. And I get that with a live service game, the to-do list is never done, right? It's like playing whack-a-mole. You fix one problem and another one pops up somewhere else. That's just the nature of that kind of game development. But even during that honeymoon, I think it was a very good description. It was a great honeymoon period, right? Because everyone was so pleasantly but surprised by, it works. It's not broken. It's actually really fun. The guns, look and sound and feel really good. The maps are well designed. This is Halo. People were just really, really enjoying it, and just even in spite of all of the issues, remember even during the honeymoon period, people were complaining about battle pass progression. They were complaining about the cosmetics basically all looked the same. Like the level 90 armor looked like the level 2 armor. So what's the point? The stuff you could buy in the store felt overpriced. The limited game modes, like these maps are great, but 1 or 2 more would have been nice, like that kind of stuff. And a lot of that was mitigated by the fact that what was there felt really, really good. But sooner or later, I think the longer you go, as the novelty of that wears off, those questions do come more to the fore. Like, we want more maps. We want these concerns to be addressed. And I think so far 343 have done a good job of trying to stay as well as they can ahead of the curve. But clearly there's a point now where I don't know if the balance is tipping more towards player dissatisfaction, or players are putting down their controllers and saying, I'll come back when this is a bit more, when you've addressed some of my concerns. But I wanted to go back to something that Parris said at the top of his comment and kind of ask that question again. Like, do you think that Halo Infinite has a problem, or is it just like teething troubles that they're still working out and eventually will get on an even footing? And we're kind of seeing them working through those teething troubles right now as the game's still relatively young. Or is there like a bigger, more concerning underlying issue that needs to be addressed? I don't know.
No, I truly do think this is just a early on teething process, so to speak, working out the kinks, understanding the needs of the community and what they need to implement, and obviously giving them the time to get those features in there. Because let's think about this from the multiplayer standpoint. Huge feature that's missing is Forge. Because even if you had this extended season right now, if you had Forge, community can just go nuts and make whatever the hell they want and start making all these crazy modes and maps and doing all this stuff. They can basically entertain themselves while 343 works on the other stuff that people are working on, but it's not there. So that's a big gap multiplayer wise. Again, this extended season, like you said, you go through the battle pass, you're done. You're like, okay, now what? You can only have the Friday night big team battle match with your buddies so many times to win. Now you're going to want something else to do, and you're not getting that right now. And they're acknowledging you're not going to get that for a while. So I do think people are just putting their controllers down, and they got to come back. They got to come back with the season 2. And we talked about this before, and almost treat it as a second launch, both for the campaign and the multiplayer, and show, here's the roadmap of all the stuff that we got coming. Get excited for it. Because like you said, Gary, it's not that the game is bad. Halo Infinite is a good game at its core. It launched in such a great state. It's just like you said, it being a quote unquote live service game, they kind of ran out of stuff to give us. And, me being a Destiny player since 2014, I know that song and dance very well, where Bungie struggled with that for a long time, not giving people things to do, where basically it was like, if you weren't doing the raid, you had nothing else to do. Wait till Iron Banner comes in a few weeks, because that's it. Because you've done everything that you can do until the next DLC comes out, right? So that's kind of where they are right now. But I do think it's still early days. I don't think this is a sound the alarms that 343 doesn't know what they're doing. Halo Infinite is a disaster. It's nothing like that. It's just they launched great. Like, I'll give you this analogy, because I played the Division 2. I say to this day, the Division 2 had the best launch ever of any of these type of live service games ever. And then they didn't have anything after that.
Yeah.
Like, it stopped.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where 343 is. So hopefully they, and they've talked about it already. So it's going to kind of suck waiting until May, June, or whenever it's going to be, when we get season 2 and they get co-op out there and they get some more of this multiplayer stuff out there. But I just think they got to keep the communication open, with the community, and let people know what they're doing. And ultimately, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, that was really well said, Parris. I'll add on to that, Gary. I mean, Parris said it, of course. The game is great. The gameplay itself is perfect, and everybody will tell you that no matter what they've played, right? But we talked about it beforehand as well. They're entering into a market now with Halo that is the traditional arena shooter multiplayer game. And we live in a world now where, I know everybody hates hearing me say it, we're in a battle royale world right now, right? Everybody is hot. They want to play that. It's the top 3 games out of the Xbox top 5 is Fortnite, Warzone, and Apex, right? And so now you come out with Halo that has a killer gameplay loop, don't get me wrong, but also there's only 3 big team battle maps, which mean me and Parris can play it for one night and we'll be like, man, we've played the same maps over and over again. I'm bored, right? On the flip side, the arena is great, but there's only 5 arena maps. And so I look at Parris and go, man, we've played the 5 maps with 4 game modes. I'm bored now, Parris, right? And so you have this big uphill battle of everybody's on the battle royale train. That's what's kept everybody's attention. You're going to come in with a great online arena, don't get me wrong, but there's just not enough there to satiate me and keep me coming back. And at first, during the honeymoon period, it was enough, right? But in my opinion, now that we're 3 months in, we talk about this, keeping the player retention, keeping your attention going. You got to come out with more content. And I think the Battle Pass has kept people going. People like rewards. For me personally, I like maps. I like game modes. And I think Forge, like Parris said, would have been great. I would have been relying on the community to make stuff like Infection, like Griftball, like so many other awesome game modes that I could have jumped in and bided my time with. But now I turn my attention to 343 and say, man, I can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. You got to give me something, because I don't need the battle pass. I just need more of what we're doing to keep this fun and exciting for me personally. And so that's where it's lost me. But I am impressed with so many things they did. I still to this day think that the custom matches are great. They run very well. I'm impressed that we can load up with 12 of our friends instead of being segmented for a big team battle. Like, they did a lot of great things. But for me, it's just not enough content to keep me going and keep me interested in all of this. And it's a perfect Division 2 situation. The moment I run out of content, it's time. I need more now. Even as fast as you think it goes by too quick. So,
and that's why I think these live service games, whether it be Division 2 or Halo or Apex or Destiny, you name it, it's got to be the most stressful it's part of game development to be in, right? Because all you're ever hearing from your player base is, yeah, that was great. What else you got?
Yeah.
Right? What else you got? Right. And you're constantly trying to stay ahead of that curve. And obviously it takes much longer to create content than it does to consume it. And so that's why they end up, designing often these grind. It's like, it's like, we'll just grind this for a while while we come up with something new. Like, repetition is the only way, right, to sustain that loop. And I'm inclined to agree with you both. I don't think there's a fundamental issue with Halo Infinite. The point is, the whole point that we've all been saying is the fundamentals are strong, right? This game has good bones, right? The core gameplay, the mechanics, the feel, just how it feels to play, like all that stuff. Like, they hit the sweet spot right out of the gate, and that's why it did have such a good honeymoon period. But again, what else you got? And now there's the issue of keeping up with that, that content treadmill. Mike, you and I talked last week about BR. Since then, I've been thinking about it. I've happened to read a couple of articles and listen to other friends on Twitter, people who are still really into Infinite, and I've heard really good arguments for and against BR. For me personally, well, let me do the other side first. I've seen a bunch of people say Halo does not need to go the BR route, and here's why. And they make some good arguments. But my thing is, like, there's nothing fundamentally about Halo that suggests it not being compatible with a battle royale mode. Like, why wouldn't it work? It should work, right? So, and that's where everybody wants to be right now. Like you said, the 3 of the top 5 are BRs. Why not try it? I mean, I don't know what they've got to lose, and I kind of feel like it could be really fun. I know for a fact if they added BR tomorrow, I'd go in and try it.
Zeta Halo is tailor-made for a BR game. Going through that campaign, and I joked around on Twitter a couple weeks ago saying Halo Infinite ODST. We're all ODSTs. Drop us into Zeta Halo in a BR mode, it would totally work. Now, they've obviously said they're not going to do that, but you can't tell me that conversation hasn't happened. And you can't tell me they didn't design Zeta Halo with at least an eye towards that down the road. I don't think it'll come anytime soon.
I'll still make the prediction, and it's a long open-ended prediction that whether it's this year or next or whenever, Halo Infinite's going to be around for a while, right?
Yeah.
It's a generational game. Somewhere along the line in Halo Infinite's life cycle, before we move on to the next one, there will be a battle royale.
I would take that bet.
Another one to keep an eye on, of course, is the esports sector. We know that they did really, really well with the esports. The HCS Raleigh brought in a lot of eyes over to the Twitch channel to see the pro players compete, and also it brought in a lot of people playing. Right now, this weekend, HCS Anaheim is kicking off Friday through Sunday. So something for all of you to go watch if you want to see the pros compete. But also we'll keep an eye on if that boosts the players over on, Steam and on Xbox. Does it also boost more eyes over on Twitch right now? Day one, they had about 50,000 people tuning in on the kickoff of HCS Anaheim. So I wonder what esports has a factor into that and how much that brings in. But guys, I have one final question. Let's talk about it from a viewer, one of the best friends out there. Shinobi 3005 writes, hey guys, much love on all things you do for the Xbox fan base. Since we are in the new year, my question is, what are your yearly predictions for Halo Infinite? Do we see campaign DLC? What else is going to be added to multiplayer? Thanks again. So I want to tie this in to end this. Parris Lilly, what do you think 343 needs to do to bring you back as a player, to bring the general player base back and really boost those numbers? And also, what do you think we'll see this year?
Yeah, I kind of just what I've already said at the top. What they need to do is get co-op implemented, which they will by the middle of this year. Get more maps for multiplayer. Get more multiplayer modes in there as well. Streamline the battle pass, make it more rewarding for people make your progression matter so that people want to stay engaged long term to continue to want to play multiplayer throughout the rest of the year. I do think when we get to the end of the year, I can see, well, we know we're getting Forge at the end of the year, but yeah, I do think we're going to get campaign DLC. I won't put any spoilers out there yet for the campaign, but they've totally set it up for DLC for the campaign. So it wouldn't surprise me at all. But then again, if they're putting all their effort into making sure they fix the multiplayer, that could get delayed. But yeah, I would imagine the plan would be, a year after it launched to have some campaign DLC to continue that story.
Gary Whitta?
First of all, the things that we know are coming and we want, right? Co-op campaign, the stuff that was promised at the beginning. I think going forward, the majority of their effort is going to be focused on, again, just keeping ahead of the player base with the live service treadmill, more maps, more modes. Maybe it's BR, maybe it's something else like it. Again, they're going to have to continue to tweak the battle pass and the progression, the cosmetics, rewards, things like that. That's really how, that's going to be the life of this game going forward. In terms of like additional like story mode, campaign DLC, sure, yeah, why not? I just kind of feel like, they've got limited hours in the day and limited people working on this game. They're probably going to prioritize. I think you're much more likely to see, multiplayer fixes and additions and to see that side of the game evolve than additional story campaign stuff.
I read this question, I smile, because if you asked us this back in November, right ahead of launch, right, my mind would have been, all right, well, at the end of season 1, which would have been 3 months, you would hit us with some multiplayer maps, right? Then we get to May and you'd hit us with campaign DLC to go along with co-op campaign, right? And then we go into Forge and we get some more DLC. Now I think to myself, man, come May, I need co-op campaign. We need some more maps, even if it's just 4. Definitely need some more maps for multiplayer. Yes. Forge can't come soon enough. I hope that Joe Staten comes out and says, hey, the team has done a really great job throughout the start of the new year. We're pushing everything forward, and maybe Forge is sooner than that 9-month marker, because I think we desperately need that. And I am similar to Parris, right? If you're looking at the roadmap and the trajectory, that campaign DLC now gets really shaky to me, right? I would love to see that in November. Let's end the year off right. But I don't know if we'll see campaign DLC this calendar year, which is a little sad, but that is my prediction. No campaign DLC for the rest of the year, which is too bad to bring up. But
Mike, No, I was going to say, just going to close this out. I mean, I think I know the answer based on just the tenor of this conversation. Are you, so what is it now? How far past launch are we? What are we looking at? Like 4 months since launch? 3 months? I can't remember exactly.
3 months. Most people are going to get on me and say 2, but they did release it November 15th. You can't tell me they didn't. So it's 3 months.
Right. So 3 months since launch, which is a good milestone, to kind of step back and take stock as we have been doing. Distilling all that down to like a final verdict. And again, this is a moving target. The game's going to continue to evolve. But right now, today, 3 months after launch, are you disappointed with how much the game has grown since, like, going from day 1 to day 90 something, wherever we are now? Do you feel like you're disappointed with how much you've seen out of the game in terms of its growth since launch?
Yeah, I thought when you came up with the plan that Halo Infinite would be a platform, and we've worked so many years leading up to this, that we'd have a better plan for the live service game, right? We look around at the landscape, and there's been so many good and bad examples of what you do and do not do. I thought this team would have a better grasp on what a live service really meant and how you nail that. We definitely have all the circumstances. I don't want to weigh that against them when we look back on the calendar and what we've seen and what we've done worldwide, right? But no, I am a little disappointed. I thought we would have a better roadmap and a better situation than we're currently sitting in 3 months into the release of this game. All right. Well, with that, let's hear a word from our sponsors.
Shout out to Chime for sponsoring this episode. New year, new you. Maybe a you who leaves behind things that don't serve you, like those dang overdraft fees. When your checking account balance is running low, the last thing you need is an overdraft fee. But with Chime, an award-winning app and debit card, you can save that hard-earned cash money without paying overdraft fees. Eligible members can overdraft up to $100 on debit card purchases and cash withdrawals with absolutely no overdraft fees. Make your first good decision in 2022 and join over 10 million people using Chime. Sign up only takes 2 minutes and doesn't affect your credit score. You can get started at chime.com/kfgames. That's chime.com/kfgames. Banking services provided by and debit card issued by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank N.A. members FDIC. Eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Overdraft only applies to debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. Limits start at $20 and may be increased up to $200 by Chime. See chime.com/spotme and go to chime.com/kfgames to get started. This episode is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Look, I get it. You don't watch porn, so maybe you're just paying attention to this ad for, a friend. But with everything going on in the world, governments have increased surveillance. They're using your devices to track your location movements and in a lot of places, your internet activity. ExpressVPN reroutes your internet connection through a secure encrypted server so you can surf the web anonymously. Newsflash, incognito mode is a sham. Your ISP can still see every single site you visit. But with one click of a button, ExpressVPN keeps others from seeing all the freaky stuff you've been looking at. Yeah, talking about you, Nick Scarpino. We've been using ExpressVPN for a long time. It's been keeping me safe, keeping me secure. I just feel better being out on the internet, knowing that ExpressVPN has my back. Protect your privacy today and get 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. Visit expressvpn.com/kindafunny. That's expressvpn.com/kindafunny for 3 months free with a 1-year package. Visit expressvpn.com/kindafunny to learn more.
All right, guys, welcome back. We got some more stuff to talk about. Of course, we got exclusivity talk. It's back again. We said when this whole Activision Blizzard acquisition announcement happened that we would talk about exclusivity until the cows came home for a full year, until this went all the way through. And we have some more evolution of this, and actually a really, really good one. If you're looking for an insightful blog post and you want to read up on Xbox and really the grand scheme of Microsoft in the future, this is a good one for you because it's coming from the Microsoft blog. Brad Smith, Microsoft president and vice chair, wrote a blog titled Adapting Ahead of Regulation, a Principled Approach to App Stores. And you're probably saying to yourself, Snowbike, Mike, why the heck would I care about an app store and principled approach? What does that mean? Well, it's actually really, really interesting because we do know that this acquisition now will be reviewed by the FTC, and we know that regulators might be a little bit harsher on a big deal like this in this world that we currently live in. But the blog details how Microsoft plans to adapt their app store with their growing role and responsibility in the tech space and a vision of a new universal app store ahead of the Activision Blizzard acquisition. But the stuff you really want to hear from this blog, it goes like this. First, some commenters have asked whether we will continue to make popular content like Activision's Call of Duty available on competing platforms like Sony's PlayStation. To be clear, Microsoft will continue to make Call of Duty and other popular Activision Blizzard titles available on PlayStation through the term of any existing agreement with Activision. And we have committed to Sony that we will also make them available on PlayStation beyond the existing agreements and into the future, so that Sony fans can continue to enjoy the games they love. We are also interested in taking similar steps to support Nintendo's successful platform. We believe this is the right thing for the industry, for gamers, and for our business. So, of course, we got to kick it over to Parris Lilly, because Parris Lilly, I thought we didn't spend $68 billion.
I'm so glad Parris is here.
I thought we didn't spend $68 billion to make games multi-platform. What happened?
Paris, you really threw down a marker on this one.
Well, to be fair,
I
threw the marker down on Bethesda, and I was right about Bethesda.
He was.
What I said about Activision, obviously being logical, they're going to do the same thing. But we've always said Call of Duty wasn't going to be straightforward exclusive. We thought it would be some hybrid potentially, where Warzone would stay multi-platform or something like that. Look. Ultimately, I'm not going to make an excuse. I was wrong, obviously, with what was just said here. It does seem that they're going to continue with existing IPs from Activision that already live, in PlayStation and Nintendo ecosystems. That's going to continue, even with new iterations of them that will continue as well, which ultimately is great because you're not taking anything away from people on that platform. They get to still play the games. That's great. Now, and I made fun of myself online, but the last little line that I said when I made fun of myself about it was, one thing is changing though. All those games are going to be in Game Pass. So that's going to kind of be their selling point of, you want to go spend $60, $70 to play that game on a PlayStation?
Right.
Go for it.
Right.
Or you can just subscribe to Game Pass, play it on your Xbox, play it on a PC, or stream it over to cloud. That's going to be their marketing sell point for a lot of that stuff. Now, one thing I'm not 100% clear on, does that also mean brand new IPs as well from these studios? Is it if Blizzard creates a brand, because I know Blizzard just announced some new IP. So is that going to be multi-platform, or is that an Xbox exclusive? I think the it's still a little muddy when it comes to stuff like that. Because even if you go and look at Bethesda, it makes sense that Starfield is exclusive because it never lived on a PlayStation platform. It never lived on Nintendo, right? So it's a brand new game, and they're saying, hey, it's a brand new game. We own it now. We're putting it on our platform, right? So I wonder if they're going to have that same philosophy with a new IP that comes from Treyarch, as an example. Again, these Activision studios, High Moon, things like that. Or are they going to keep those multi-platform? Crash Bandicoot, yes, keep that multi-platform. That makes sense, right? Obviously, Call of Duty, it's such a huge moneymaker. And again, it's a quote-unquote live service game. You want these live service games to be everywhere. We're clearly seeing that PlayStation has the same philosophy, because Bungie, all their games are going to continue to be multi-platform. Why limit it to just one piece of hardware when you put it on everything, right? So I was wrong, in the grand scheme of things. I'm very happy to be wrong. Blessing. You're right. I was wrong. But yeah, I mean, for gamers, this is a good thing. But I am surprised that Microsoft is doing this. Is the whole FTC, they want to make sure it gets through, a part of this? Maybe, maybe not. I know a lot of people have been saying that online. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you got a PlayStation, Nintendo, you love Call of Duty, you'll continue to be able to play it wherever you want to play it. And that's a good thing.
Couple of things. First of all, Parris, this is one that was very easy to be wrong about, I think.
Yeah.
Because I always felt that it was a bit of a coin flip. I don't remember exactly like what we said back when, but I remember saying something along the lines of like, it's tough because there's so much money to be made just continuing to publish these games on other platforms. Like, and I always said it just comes down to like, is it more financially advantageous to bring these games in-house and say, well, they're exclusive to Xbox now, or does it make more sense to just keep printing money, selling these to PlayStation gamers as well? But there is a little bit more to it than that, I think. I think Phil was looking at the whole picture and thinking, well, if we were to do that, if we're essentially going to take, you have to remember, Call of Duty is in a category by itself when it comes to its popularity, right? There are millions and countless millions of players out there who play it, who love it. They're obsessed with it. It's something, for many people, it's the only game that they play. And even people that don't know anything about video games have probably heard of Call of Duty. Like, it's right up there. So you do have to I think different rules do apply when you think about, well, are we going to take this game away from millions of loyal players who've been playing this since, three or four generations of the PlayStation? Are we now going to take that game away from them and say, well, you got to buy an Xbox now? I could see that backfiring in terms of their public image and goodwill, from gamers and stuff like that. So they can keep it multi-platform while at the same time, as Parris said, they still got the edge, right? Well, you don't have to pay for it over here. You want to pay $70, or do you want to come over here and get it on Game Pass? Plus, the other thing they can do is they can turn the tables. It used to be that Sony version of Call of Duty had the edge in terms of exclusive DLC. Like, oh, this mode's only available on PlayStation. I guarantee you that's going to flip. Yep. Right? If there's any special bonuses, Xbox players are getting them now. In terms of an exclusive mode or exclusive DLC or timed exclusivity on anything, Xbox going to have the advantage on that on any of those little bonuses now. So the Xbox version is going to be the choice going forward, I think, for most people. So Microsoft, with this approach, I think, gets to have their cake and eat it. Xbox going to become the primary platform for Call of Duty, but they still get to make a lot of money and not piss off, millions of Sony gamers by effectively taking it away from them, which is what they would be doing. And I'm no expert, but maybe there is a regulatory aspect to this as well. Like, if they're going to be accused of monopolistic practices by taking one of the biggest multi-platform titles in the video game world off the table, if they now get to say, well, but we're not doing that. Nothing's changing for all these people. Like they still get to play. We're not doing the monopolistic thing. Which would be to bring it in house. We're keeping this game available to all. So that's maybe an argument they could make in front of a judge if it came to that. I don't know how much that is factoring into their thinking, but I know it makes sense to me.
Yeah, it was interesting, Parris, and you just brought up that was the question I was going to lean into because you saw the conversation on social media of like, is this to maybe get the regulators to take a different look or different spin on that as we start to get into this review process, right? Of like, hey, we are going to put it on that, or that's our plans. Does that maybe put a different spin onto what this whole deal looks like from the outside looking in? I guess moving forward as well, Parris, you brought up a good part of like, this is clear, but still not 100% clear, right? Is this the rest of time? Is this future games we've never heard of? Is this, legendary games like Rock Band and Crash Bandicoot? What does this really look like? Only time will tell, but they seem to do another great job of having that corporate speak of like, hey, this is it. It's very clear, but also we can have some wiggle room to keep this moving if need be.
The way I look at it is this. Again, I'll just use Starfield as the example. So if a current Activision studio has the ambition to make a Starfield level game, huge single player experience, that's like a bargaining chip to get people to invest into your ecosystem. So just because that studio started off as an Activision studio, you wouldn't make that exclusive to your ecosystem, to your platform? I don't know. And like I said, that part is still a little unclear because they're obviously doing this with Bethesda titles, right? They're obviously doing this with the other individual studios that they've acquired. They haven't just said across the board, all Xbox Game Studio games from this point forward are multi-platform. They're not saying that. They're doing that Minecraft approach where, I guess, again, go back to Bethesda. Phil Spencer said it then when they initially started that, case-by-case basis. Obviously, with Activision, for various reasons, is one of those case-by-case bases where some of those games, if not all those games coming out of Activision, they will continue to be multi-platform. So, I mean, we're not going to really see the effect of any of this 2024, 2025, most likely, for a lot of this stuff. But it'll be interesting to keep an eye on if it's a pick and choose thing or if it's everything. I lean towards it's not going to be everything. There will be some games that come from legacy Activision studios that will be exclusive to Xbox. It just seems to make logical sense to me that they would do that. But Call of Duty obviously is the 800-pound gorilla, of course. Oh yeah, put that everywhere. It makes sense because it's a multiplayer game. They're going to want all these live service multiplayer games to be everywhere. That makes sense to me.
I think Call of Duty absolutely is the big one, and that's been the focal point for obvious reasons. But don't forget, Microsoft also bought a lot of other pre-existing franchises that have loyal player bases, and I think that to me, I think it's a fairly simple line of demarcation going forward. I think if it's something they bought that already has like a baked-in player base, not just Call of Duty, but Overwatch, Diablo, where people are already on PlayStation playing it, my guess is that Overwatch 3 or Diablo 5 down the road that will continue to be available on a multi-platform. But anything new, like this Blizzard survival game that was just out, anything where there's anything where you don't feel like you're taking it away from players that already have enjoyed it on their own platform. I think that's gonna be the difference going forward, and hopefully that's the that feels like the right balance.
But see, that's kind of, not to side tangent this into a PlayStation thing, is this is an Xbox show, but that's what surprised me about the Bungie thing with PlayStation. Like, Destiny made sense. Of course, it already lived everywhere. They're not going to change that. But we know they're working on a new IP. They're also saying that's going to be everywhere too. So I was surprised to hear that. So, but then when you see what Xbox is saying about Activision, it kind of sounds like the same thing, right? So it will be interesting to see how that plays out with, like you said, new IPs, games that we've never heard of before. Will they make those exclusive, or will they keep those multi-platform? I will say, for the record, because I can sense the comments already, for the record, I don't think any game should be exclusive. Not a one. I think every game should be everywhere, personally. But that's not the world we live in. We know that's not going to happen. There's going to be business decisions that are strategically made so that some games, again, I keep going back to Starfield. Starfield's going to be a big deal for Xbox, that you can only play that via the Xbox ecosystem. That will get people to invest into the Xbox ecosystem. So, of course, you're going to see cases like that where they're going to strategically put certain games, the tentpole franchise games, only into their ecosystem, because that's just how it works, right?
We've talked about this before in the context of an arms race, right? As Sony and Microsoft are acquiring all these developers, and it's feeling like more of a. And again, Nintendo's always going to be a big player, but just off in the corner doing their own wacky thing. But in terms of Microsoft and Sony being the two that are going very two very like for like systems and like for like audiences, I almost wonder if there is like a sense of both companies trying to kind of multilaterally disarm. It's like, okay, if you keep playing, I don't know if they're necessarily having these conversations behind the scenes, they might well be. Phil said he spoke to Sony, right? So it might well be, okay, well, look, we'll keep, we won't bring Call of Duty in house, and you won't bring Destiny in house. Like, well, let's just, maybe there's some kind of detente going on behind the scenes to kind of disarm and not have this get ugly. And that, I think that's going to be good for gamers as a whole, because you don't want everything to be like super entrenched, and the only way to play every or even most games out there is it will be to own both systems or be bought into both ecosystems. So it may well be that both companies are kind of sensing that what's good for us is good for them as well, and this doesn't have to get ugly. I don't know.
I think so. And again, leaning more towards on the multiplayer experiences, because crossplay is starting to become a standard across the board. So it's really blurring the lines. Does it really matter which one you play it on? Everyone's playing together anyway, so just let everyone play together, whether you're on an Xbox, ColecoVision, or Vectrex. It shouldn't matter. Just let everyone play together. So, and you also have to factor in, this is an arms race. This is an acquisition race as well, where the industry is consolidating. I'm trying to say this the right way, because again, I can sense the comments. I would rather Xbox and PlayStation buy up these studios and these publishers than Tencent or Amazon or Facebook or Apple, if that makes sense. I would rather companies that actually know how to make games and have been in this industry for decades doing this. If there's going to be a consolidation, I'd rather them do it than the outside tech companies do it. And we have no idea how they would handle it. Like, I have this nightmare scenario of Facebook acquiring all these studios, and they make you log into Facebook to be able to play everything. I don't want to do that. I don't want to play it on the Facebook platform. I would rather continue to play on the platforms that exist today. And that's kind of where it looks like these lines are blurring, where PlayStation and Xbox are realizing they're better off semi-working together than competing apart, if that makes sense too, right? So I think we're going to see more of this, where these games are just going to be everywhere. Not everything, but a lot of the multiplayer ones will be. It just makes sense.
Parris, before we get out of this one, I do want to circle back to the Bungie situation really quick, because of course we talked about it last week, me and Gary kind of saying goodbye to Bungie, but also wowed by what that stance was. You are the Bungie guy. You love Destiny. Bungie was, the creators of Halo and into Xbox. What were your thoughts on PlayStation picking up Bungie?
Oh, I was fine with it. And I purposely posted all my hours that I've played Destiny on the PlayStation. It's like over 2,000, I think, something like that, right? But I mean, that's where I've mained Destiny, for the last 7 years or however long it's been. So in a weird way, it wouldn't have mattered to me if it did go exclusive, because I just would have kept playing it on PlayStation. But I don't think, as a gamer, as this is an Xbox show, no one in Xbox is losing anything with PlayStation acquiring Bungie. The fact that Bungie was able to negotiate, basically, it's more of a partnership than an acquisition, because they still have all their creative freedom. They're still going to put their games everywhere. Nothing changes for people that love Bungie games. So, hey, good for them. Good for them that they were able to, get acquired for almost $4 billion, and obviously enrich the people that work at that company. And they're going to continue to make great games. And if anything, Bungie, we talk about these live service games and how tricky they are. They're really the only ones that have seemingly gotten it right enough, because obviously nothing's perfect. But, like I said, Destiny's been around for like 7 years, and it's been a roller coaster, but there's been way more good on that roller coaster than there's been bad. So if they can share their experiences and their technology with more studios to help them, because obviously PlayStation's going to make more live service games, good. Because, we brought up the Division 2 as an example. I absolutely adored that game when I first started playing it, and then we just ran out of things to do. So hopefully Bungie now helping PlayStation studios can help them. But, I get it. This is an Xbox show. So what about Xbox? You're still going to get Destiny. You're still going to get that new IP from Bungie as well. And we all get to play it together. I think I don't see anything bad about this personally.
The other way to think about this, Parris, and we've talked about this before as well, is the idea of, this all becoming feeling like less and less a thing worth talking about as we get closer to the kind of the cloud gaming future. Because think about it, right? What does it mean for a game to be exclusive on a platform? Well, it means you have to own that piece of hardware, right? If you want to play Halo and Uncharted, you have to own an Xbox and a PlayStation. But Microsoft has very clearly kind of laid out what it wants the future of gaming to be about, right? Which is, it's not necessarily dependent on you owning a Series X or a Series S, but maybe it's just in the future, it's going to be a smart TV app. It's going to be a dongle. It's going to be an app on your phone. We're already halfway there. They're getting closer and closer and closer to that. Sony, we know they're somewhat behind in this, but we know that they're bringing out a Game Pass equivalent that we're probably going to see this year. I think that they're going to have their own cloud initiative is, they're going to try to match Microsoft move to move. So maybe in a couple of years, the idea of, being a multi-platform gamer is going to, and playing Halo and also Uncharted, and being able to jump back and forth between those two ecosystems is less about having an Xbox and a PlayStation under your TV, and more about just the equivalent of like, well, I have Netflix and I have Disney Plus. I just pay for both those subscriptions and I get a ton of content. I'll have a Game Pass app and I'll have a Spartacus or whatever it's called app, and I'll have everything that I want. I think we're just going to care less about these boundaries as time goes on.
Oh, I 100% agree. I already don't care personally. I mean, just you go where the games are, and like you said, as cloud gets more integrated, and like you said, it's not going to matter. They're bringing the best way to look at it is Xbox has started it. You're seeing PlayStation take the same initiative. They're bringing the games to where the people are versus telling the people to come to where the games are. That's it. I mean, it's really that simple. They're not forcing you to be locked into a particular piece of hardware. We're gonna get to that point one day, and that's a good thing, because it's just about playing the games. I really could care less where I play them.
Well, that's some more exclusivity talk for you, or more, I guess, inclusivity, because it's coming everywhere. So get ready for that. But let's keep it moving. Let's round out the show with a nice little celebration of some player counts that you really want to take note of. Benji Sales over on Twitter, friend of the show, put out another great tweet. Of course, we know about Sea of Thieves hitting 25 million players. We know Halo Infinite hit 20 and Forza Horizon 5 hitting 18. But we got two new games getting some cool milestones. One game that I know we all loved here on this panel, Minecraft Dungeons, hitting 15 million players.
Wow.
And Grounded now hitting 10 million players. Grounded is still in early access, not even out with its 1.0 release, but you got to see the team over at Obsidian celebrating Grounded and that 10 million player milestone. The dev team celebrated with a fun video you can see online. And they also released a dynamic theme for Xbox Series X and S users to enjoy. That's out right now if you want to update your background on your Xbox and have some cool backyard settings. And of course, they are looking towards that full 1.0 release that is slated sometime later this year. So something to keep an eye on. But congratulations to Minecraft Dungeons and Grounded for hitting those player milestones. Big numbers for both of those games.
Oh, absolutely.
And so with that, guys, it's time to get out of here. It's Friday. It's the end of the week. We had the whole crew here together. It was nice to chat with all of you. And I can't wait to hear about Redacted later on. We'll talk more about that. But until then, all of the Kinda Funny best friends, everybody watching and listening, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Kinda Funny Xcast. We will catch you next week. See you, gamers.